Please welcome AFWERX and AFVentures AFRL as they discuss immersion and opportunities available.
Hey everyone, good morning. I am Jason Rathje, and today we are going to be discussing AFWERX and our new mission partners at AFRL. I am the division chief and managing director of AFVentures, which is one of 3 divisions within AFWERX. Our AFWERX director, Colonel Diller, unfortunately couldn't make it here today, but I will be filling in his shoes to discuss AFWERX. What is AFWERX? What our model is, and how we're thinking about working with this incredible community of entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, technology developers, investors, and most importantly, our warfighters. And then we're going to take a deep dive into AFVentures, which is AFWERX's and the department's commercial investment group. We work a lot with the SBIR program, which is how you may have heard of AFWERX in the past, the AFWERX SBIR open topic, and we'll dive specifically into that. And then I'm going to hand it over to Jared Evans, who is on our call today, and he's got an exciting panel. Jared leads our STTR portfolio and also our Research Institute engagement strategy, along with working directly with Air Force OSR, the Office of Scientific Research, and brings a wealth of technical expertise and background and depth. But on our discussion today, we've got some surprise guests who are going to talk to you about how they've been able to work with the program, how they've been able to utilize the program successfully from the perspective of a warfighter and from a company, and how this may have influenced their relationship in working together. So I'm very excited about that. I'm not going to take up any more time with introducing our topics today, with the exception of, hopefully you can find everything that we talk about today, all of the additional information that we have at afwerx.af.mil. You can check out all of our divisions there. If you're interested in the work we're doing at Ventures, at investment opportunities and opportunities to work with the Air Force, you can click on For Industry at AFVentures. You can find Jared and myself there. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions or perspectives that you might have, or comments or feedbacks from today's session. So without any further ado, I'm going to jump into this eye chart that you've got in front of you here. We're going to quickly run over what is AFWERX. AFWERX was stood up in 2017. It is an organization that was for the longest time in Headquarters Air Force, allowing and enabling the Vice Chief and the Chief and the Secretary to directly interact with airmen across the Air Force, now including the Space Force, to help the airmen have access to and the ability to the resources they needed to empower innovation at the local level. And so AFWERX was a sandbox for innovators, is the easiest way to describe it. A number of things have come out from AFWERX from that sandbox. When it was stood up, AFWERX was, hey, here's a source for you as an airman to innovate. Now we have a number of capabilities that have developed from that sandbox, a number of successes that have led AFWERX in growth into its next stage. And we're really excited about what this next stage of AFWERX looks like. In June of this year, we reorganized AFWERX as an acquisitions organization under AFRL. So we're the newest tech directorate at AFRL, AFRL RG. And through that partnership with AFRL, we've been able to establish 3 divisions: AFVentures, Prime, and Spark. And I'm going to briefly go into what those different divisions are here, and talk a bit more about how we integrate into AFRL and the department moving forward. So AFVentures is the Air Force's front door for new innovative technologies and ideas. The purpose of AFVentures is, and I'll go into more into this in detail here in a second, is to leverage those commercial technology options. What is out there today what are you as companies, as innovators, as entrepreneurs, as small businesses, as non-traditionals thinking about, working on, developing? Where are the private capital markets taking us as a country? We know that the vast majority of R&D is spent outside of the DoD fence line. We know the work that you're doing, you're developing for commercial markets, you're developing for core commercial sources of revenue, and you're interested potentially, hopefully, in working with the DoD, working with the Department of the Air Force. And so AFVentures sets to invest in your ideas where there's overlap with real Air Force mission needs, and to help you as a company, as an investor, as an entrepreneur, to transition your technology to the warfighter. But that is contingent on us connecting to those warfighters. And for that, we have the Spark division, which is where our concepts come from. We work with over 80 Spark cells across the globe to source needs, mission focus areas from across the department, from our partners and the reserves and the National Guard as well, and work closely with our joint partners to bring in what are those mission focus areas, that the real pain points that they have that they need help solving. Now, not every need is going to be solved with some new technology, product, or service. So the Spark cell exists, or the Spark division exists to connect those mission needs with real options. But sometimes those real options are new technologies. And today Jared will be talking with some folks of where that connection happened and was successful in connecting an entrepreneur with someone who had a real need. Where we find that overlap between concepts and technologies, we see transition happening. We know for companies that just partnering with the Air Force or receiving some SBIRSTTR funding or some initial R&D funding is not going to cut it in the long run. There's development that happens, but development happens with a purpose. It happens with a purpose of recurring revenue. That's where our ROI is generated from the ventures investment portfolio, and certainly where we want to help you get as a company that we're investing in. And the Prime program was where we helped develop capabilities for the department. Now, when we fund a company and we connect it to a warfighter, there are many ways to achieve transition in the department. Sometimes it's as easy as that customer turning around and buying future products and services directly from the company. After the R&D is complete, we've gotten that company to a stage where they can actually sell a product or service back to the Air Force. Often, that company and that technology is going to require additional serious investment. It's going to require palmed forward budget. It's going to require game-changing capability development. And the Prime program is situated very well to do that. The Prime program focuses on transitioning capabilities, and it also does it in a way that helps form strategic markets. So our first program that's come out of Prime is Agility Prime. Agility Prime is the flying car market of the future, the urban air mobility, or now we're calling the advanced air mobility market. In these markets, the Air Force sees a strategic need to be a Prime customer. We know that these markets are going to be competitive in the future. We know that in the commercial side of the house, we know that manufacturing, product development is going to happen internationally. And we want the US to be competitive in these markets. To do that effectively, the Air Force sees a need to be a Prime consumer. And Agility Prime is one of the first of many Prime programs we plan to release from the Prime division. In those programs, we seed those with investments from ventures. We connect them with real users from across our Spark cells. And we work together collaboratively to set up Prime programs for success, for transition. I want to highlight a quote here where the program has been highlighted by the HASC Future of Defense report, which came out very recently. And if you haven't read it, I highly recommend going to pick up a copy. The report in general really speaks to what AFWERX is doing. We're leveraging commercial technologies, commercial capabilities. We're investing to be a Prime customer, and we're connecting them all to real warfighters that have real problems that need to be solved. And the Future of Defense report talks about how this interaction with the commercial sector has to be stronger and tighter for us to leverage the capabilities that you're developing today. The quote says that the establishment of models such as AFVentures to attract greater private sector investment to defense technologies has shown value. Should be closely examined for their effectiveness in rebalancing the national security innovation ecosystem. So that's what it really comes down to, and what I'm going to jump in here to next with our discussion on AFVentures. So AFVentures, as we discussed briefly there, is one of three divisions. We sit to engage with the commercial sector and take a national approach to national defense. What is AFVentures? AFVentures is the department's commercial investment arm. So our mission is to leverage what is happening in the commercial sector to deliver better capability to the warfighter faster. Where a lot of the department focuses on defense requirements and defense development of new technologies, we focus on commercial development. What are the commercial markets doing? What are they developing? Where are they investing their R&D dollars? And what are the successes from those that we can derive for the Air Force mission needs? The way we invest is through a simple open front door model. And I'll talk more about this in a minute with our SBIR program, but for all programs that we'll have under AFVentures, we want one-stop shop for you as a company to come and partner with us. If you don't know who in the Air Force might be willing to work with you, you don't know what they're working on or how their mission might need your technology or your capability, we want to provide a home for you to come and discuss what capabilities you're providing and pitch us on its ability to impact the Air Force mission. And so a simple, easy to use front door, one-stop shop is the way that we like to operate. And what we do is through that model, take a national approach to security. So our intent here is to partner with private sources of capital and government funding to invest in national security interests. And we're excited to announce that we've been working on some research alongside of our investment strategies to date. We're going to be releasing a report within the next month that goes into greater detail about how well we've done at meeting our mission objectives and implementing our strategies. But we've seen a market improvement in venture capital, private investment, private equity, and investing in companies who've partnered with us, where they have not been able to receive capital beforehand, are now being able to access additional sources of private capital. We've also seen a market rise in government customers being able to work with companies that we've funded to be able to leverage those innovations for their mission needs to a significant number of follow-on contracts outside of our investment. So we are very bullish on this approach. We think it's the right approach for commercial companies to partner with us. And I think it really resonates when you think about the reasons why AFVentures even exists. You know, that Dr. Roper said this quote recently as we were talking about the discussion of standing up AFVentures. You know, you look at the direction the world is going, the threats that we face, and innovation is going to be its own competitive domain, almost a battlefield. We've got to win the innovation battle. And capital is a big part of that. Companies can't get capital from us fast enough. We'll find foreign investments that they got to take to keep from going under. We understand that. So shame on us if the reason that they're accepting foreign investment is because we couldn't talk with them and work with them fast enough. The department realizes that companies need capital to grow and scale. High-tech companies need capital to develop high technologies. And that's where the Air Force wants to be and the Space Force wants to be. So we are excited about this model because we believe it's the right model to take to be able to drive not only our funding, but matched investment from the private sector to be able to capitalize you as a company to achieve what you'd like to achieve from not only from a development perspective, but from a growth perspective. And we know that this is important because we know that amount of capital and the amount of innovation that's happening in the countries happening outside of the DoD fence line. Total share of federal R&D now totals approximately 30% of overall U.S. spend in R&D. And the DoD is only one portion of that federal R&D allocation. So when the bulk of capital, the bulk of development effort is happening outside of the DoD fence line, we need a model, we need an organization that's situated to access and leverage that development. We also know that our industrial base is consolidating. We've seen that in the 1970s, that 35% of all DoD contracts went to 225 companies. That same 35% of DoD contracts now goes to 5 companies. We know that without diversification in companies who are interested in pursuing national security missions, that we're going to lose the innovation battlefield. But we also know that the US has a shrinking global technology influence. We know we need to better partner with our allied nations and with countries across the world to be able to develop novel innovations, because innovation happens everywhere, not just here in the US. And so we're looking forward to building models that leverage and work with our international partners. So what is our vision for AFVentures? It's to develop a 21st century industrial base for defense. The intent for ventures moving forward is to develop a series of financial instruments that incentivize partnering between non-traditional companies, private investors, and Air Force organizations. Our biggest program, and the one we'll be spending the most time today, is our work with the Air Force's SBIR program. But we're working on other exciting new capital opportunities. Hopefully we'll be able to announce a few of those here in the coming weeks. But please be on the lookout for Ventures continue to expand its access to financial instruments that help you as companies develop capabilities that the Air Force needs. We want to ensure that when we partner with a company or government partner, that's a stepping stone to transition. And for companies, it's a stepping stone to recurring revenue. We know that our investment is only one part of the equation, but we want to utilize that investment to ensure that the partnerships have the best chances they have at succeeding. And lastly, we want to make sure that we have a clear pathway to competition for market demand. For emerging markets like the urban air mobility market, we've funded a number of companies. Jared can talk briefly about the 20.D STTR program, which is closing up as we speak with contract activity, where we're funding hundreds of companies focused on urban air mobility. It's about creating and allowing competition for those new and emerging markets. So I also want to spend a little bit of time talking about, how do you engage? How do you work with AFVentures? And the SBIR program and the STTR programs are our most well-known programs, are the ones that we've been doing the longest. We started AFVentures as a concept 2 years ago in 2018 with our first open topic. It was a very small experimental program with a handful of dollars and a few individuals on the team. And it's this program that's demonstrated this open approach to leverage private capital and drive towards transition that has grown successfully over the last few years. Really, the general intent of the program and structure hasn't changed. There's 3 phases that follow the SBIR phased approach. Phase 1 is a feasibility study. So any company with any idea can apply to a AFVentures open topic SBIR or STTR. That idea will get graded on 3 categories: the technology, the commercial potential, and its relevance to a defense need. The company will pitch. You can pitch us as to what you're developing and why it's going to impact some Air Force mission need. If you're successful in that pitch, we'll award a $50,000 3-month contract. The intent of that contract is to work with the Air Force on engaging in a feasibility analysis and customer discovery to see how your technology, how the concept that you'd like to develop is going to meet an Air Force need. We do this 3 times a year. We award between 900 and 1,000 open topic phase ones. Those companies all enter into a very similar program, get awarded a very similar contract. And at the end of the 3 months of activity, you have the opportunity to apply for a phase two or a prototype stage effort. Here, we look at investing seriously in the technology and capability that you're intending to develop with your found Air Force customer. The phase two program, the prototype program, is contingent on having a customer, having someone inside of the Air Force. Not us at Ventures, we're here as an investment community, but we'll help you work with and find customers inside the Air Force. If that customer is sold on working with you as a company and interested in partnering on a development effort, we'll fund a phase two contract. We fund up to $750,000 for your initial phase two award. Here, match funding is encouraged. We certainly recommend government customers and private investors to partner alongside with us win that development effort. And so we've seen a lot of successes here. We've funded over 300 matched contracts with government customers and over 160 with private investors. So for us, it's been a very successful partnership model in working with the private investment community and government customers to bring together in one focused investment into the technology you are developing. Lastly, we have our enhancement program, and here we're looking to scale. So for any phase two effort that's out there, we have programs available for scaling those contract efforts. Here in the SBIR program, they're called phase two Bs, extensions or supplementals. And these contract actions will award for a handful of companies every year up to $15 million of SBIR funds for scale 4-year contracts. Now, those contracts, match funding is required. Where in your base phase two, it's not required, but encouraged. In the scaling contract, it is required. Depending on your work, we either require government only match or government match and private funding. And the intent here is to partner with multiple sources of capital to make the growth of the company and the development of the technology successful. And I do want to highlight that here. We at AFVentures take a non-dilutive stance when working with companies. We fund contracts. So we fund the development of novel technologies, novel ideas for the transition to the warfighter. We're not a procurement agency. We don't buy products and services. And we don't, we're not an investment organization in the commercial context. We don't invest in a company. So if a phase one doesn't transition to a phase two, or a phase two doesn't transition to a phase 2B, that's not because we don't believe in the company. It's because the technology in a rack and stack from an evaluation perspective, we didn't have enough funding to fund those specific efforts. But just because funding for an effort doesn't happen once doesn't mean it can't happen the next round. Just because a company's not successful in engaging in a phase one doesn't mean you shouldn't reapply. We just look at the specific effort to be funded and the contract in which we can let to be able to assist in the development efforts. And in that, we feel like we're a very strong complementary supporter of your development as a company. The SBIR program is dedicated to companies, U.S. companies under 500 employees. The STTR program also requires a research institution for partnership. Under those auspices, we want to continue to work to help you be a successful company by partnering in your journey, by helping you invest in technology development efforts as a very unique investment partner, where other investors are worried more about sales growth, about your growth as a company. We're focused on the development of the technology and its impact on the Air Force mission. So what are some of the results to date? Well, Jared is going to talk about a very specific case example in a second, but before we dive in, I do want to discuss some of the results that we've had since we've started the program in 2018. In 2018, you can see it as the star on the slide here is where we started this program. And we've seen, using this model, a massive increase in the number of companies that have been interested in working with us and the number of companies we've been able to work with. We're very excited about expanding our portfolio as a department. as a space and Air Force, we're excited about working with new companies with novel ideas. We're also excited about working with the companies who we've worked with in the past. At no point do we ever want to move away from the incredible companies who've been partnering with us for years. And there's still opportunities within the SBIR program to work with these companies. And so we're excited about the model. We're excited about, as you can see in this chart, maintaining our relationships and increasing and expanding to new relationships along the way. 80% of the companies that we've awarded through phase one, and the open topic specifically, are companies new to the Air Force SBIR program to date. So we've been able to access a lot of new companies who haven't worked with us in the past, something we're very excited about as well. I do want to mention that the open topic is not the only SBIR program that is available. It is just one that focuses on the AFWERX and the AFVentures model for investment. To date, we've been able to see a lot of successes from the program, though. Since we started in June of 2018, our companies have gone on to win hundreds of millions of dollars in follow-on government contracts. At this point, over $2 billion. This is a little old, and excited about the new report that's coming out, but over $2 billion in follow-on private capital. Many companies in our portfolio are new to SBIR. A number of these companies have won multiple phase one and phase two contracts. It, on average, takes less than 5 months to get for those companies who do win follow-on contracts. It takes less than 5 months after completing a contract to win another follow-on DoD contract. And in total, we've received about $4 in non-SBIR fund investment for every dollar that we've put forward with the ventures model. So we're very excited about the successes to date. We're excited about seeing those charts continue to grow over time. And I'll get off this. The stage chart is here. You know, we've got a high transition rate, as we discussed. We've increased private investment coming to companies who are interested in working with us and interested in partnering with private investors. Look, just because our name is AFVentures and we like working with the private investment community doesn't mean that you as a company need to take private investment to be successful with us. Match funding can come from government partners. It can come from pre-sales. We love pre-sales as a way to drive matched investment. There's a whole sector of of matched investment that does not mean that you need to dilute your company at all. It's an option, but not a requirement. I want to make sure that I foot stomp that. We've been able to move fast, and we have had a significant number of new partners that have joined the fight with us. So I'm excited about where we've gone and where we're going. With that, I want to pass it over to Jared Evans. Jared is going to introduce our next segment here. And certainly, if you have any other follow-on questions for us, please go to the AFWERX website, afwerx.af.mil. You can check us out there, and that's a great way to learn about how to engage, how to apply, and how to work with us. So Jared, over to you.
Yeah, really phenomenal overview, Jason. I really appreciate the introduction there. And the effort that the team has been able to put in is really incredible, right? In order to really affect multiple parties, right, past just kind of our immediate relationships, right, and really influence change up and downstream with the folks that we work with most directly. What we have today, so Jason's talked about a lot about kind of the systemic results that we've seen, which are really phenomenal, not only in terms of the number of companies that we're engaging with, right, on a very, very, very basic level, but also the financial effects, the relationships effects past that, right, and the small business programs that we've seen so far. So, you know, one thing that we're going to highlight today and really focus on is Passenger Incorporated, right? It's a company who has come through the 20.A STTR program and cohort there, and was able to not only identify but also codify the relationship with stakeholders inside of the Department of the Air Force, and continue to develop their product, right, and affect the capabilities that our warfighters are able to take advantage of now. So I would like to go ahead and introduce those folks now. So first of all, we have Ron Maynard, who is the CEO of Passenger, is on the line with us, as well as Lieutenant Colonel Alex Stoicki Goldberg, who is the Chief Innovation Officer at the Joint Force Headquarters for the Texas National Guard. So first of all, gentlemen, welcome. Thanks so much for taking time out of your morning to touch base with us.
Pleasure. Pleasure to be here, Jared.
Yeah, thanks so much. So Ron, as kind of an initial step here, can you kind of talk through a little bit about your company and your technology here that in working with the program?
Sure, you bet. So our company, I'm CEO of Passenger, and this development came out of some work I had done at Stanford University in the Center for Integrated Systems, which involved making micro-machined scanning projectors that were on the order of a few hundred microns. And it was used initially as switching, optical switching in the internet area. Later, we kind of moved off and did steerable catheters, shape memory alloys, and so forth for the medical community. So since that time, we got an investment. I put together a plan for doing a new type of very high capability VR system. It's actually mixed reality is what we call it. And it involves taking complex systems, say like the HoloLens or Vive or one of those systems, and reducing it in size by a factor of 100 at least. And what that does, we use MEMS, mechanical systems, to miniaturize the component for a scanner in particular, or a multiple of scanners. It's more like an array. And we've taken the complexity and the price down by a factor of 100 by our costs at the factory. In this case, we are working with Teledyne in Canada, and they give us a price of around $4 or so per unit. And so, in any case, this also allows us to have a ruggedization of 2,500 Gs. We've also created a depth of field capability to it, where you can actually see depth for, in our case, with our partner here, Texas Air National Guard and Stoike. We are producing something that will give us a lightweight flight simulator. So, and that allows us to see up close with depth, the switches and so forth. That's just one example. The form factor for our product it looks like a pair of Oakleys. And as I say, the complex, we've reduced the complexity to a MEMS unit that's $4 per unit. The other stuff obviously is going to be $50, $60 sort of thing for our production costs. So we initially were going to go for commercial only, because it's a vast market. In particular, we were looking at medical for surgical assist, because surgeons demand to have lag-free depth of field and high resolution. So the other aspect of our array is that we can produce a full 220 degrees of angular resolution. So the field of regard is huge. It is natural. It is full resolution down to the 15 million photoreceptors that you have on your retina. So we feel we're going down the right direction. It's expensive to be in a clean room, and hence we've joined up with foundries that are a lot less expensive. However, it's very time consuming, and it's not necessarily secure in particular. So Teledyne, DALSA, Teledyne, Microline in Canada is who we're working with, also Dallas Richardson. So that's kind of an overview of our product. We do have private funding. We initially went into Capital Factory here in Austin and spoke with the Army's Future Command. They were very excited to have it for folks on the ground, the warfighter, being able to overlay drone views, so forth, infrared at a full 220 degrees. I think at that point we weren't ready, but we did try for a SBIR direct phase 2, a little bit early for us. Then met up with Stoike, who also happened to be there at Capital Factory, and we had a mutual friend, Evan Loomis, who is the guy behind Icon, the concrete printing company for military DoD use. Anyway, after having some initial investments with the private sector, we then moved on with Stoike's assistance to an STTR phase 1, got that, and we just recently received the STTR2 phase 2. So that allows us to pick up the game a bit, pick up the speed. And we're now producing some hardware. It's in the works at the moment. So that's kind of the overview of what we do.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. I appreciate that, Ron. Can you speak a little bit to, you mentioned the intent right initially to start commercial. What made the DoD an interesting partner even at the beginning? Has that perception changed over time at all?
I think so, actually. I really wasn't aware that the DoD would be funding at this level, and the commercial looked very good. But we're kind of in a very bleeding edge, high tech area here where there is some competition. There's none in the MIMS world, actually. Exactly what we're doing, but to just walk in the door and have STTRs available to do these prototypes, I think. From our perspective, we're mean and lean. We like to see a prototype. And once we get the prototype, then we can scale and accelerate. It also helped us considerably to have help or customers from the Air Force to get us additional funding as well. So we have additional private funding after our STTR phase 2. Plus, I have 2 of my brothers, the Air Force officers. So I was always kind of leaning towards DoD to begin with, but your program definitely made a big difference for us moving in this direction.
No, that's really interesting. Thank you for that perspective. One thing that differentiates the STTR program from the SBIR program is the research institution, right? Universities, entrepreneurship, nonprofits, or FFRDCs, or the like, that are partnered with the small businesses. Can you talk about your partnership and what that has done for your effort?
Absolutely. So our partner is Texas A&M, and we are working with the group over there that actually does flight simulators. And so our lightweight flight simulator, the whole point to that is to produce a very inexpensive, very portable, again, Oakley wraparound sunglasses form factor and a minimalist a for a F-16 in this case. That's what we're doing. A&M is very helpful, and we've had a lot of back and forth, and they're very excited also to be part of this program, this development program. We also may be in touch or partnering to an extent with University of Texas at Richardson. They have facilities here in the U.S. We'd prefer to do our work in clean rooms in the U.S. if we can, and they look like a possible choice as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's really useful. I think it's important to kind of note the partnerships that really enable the processes like this. And you had a really interesting point on a little earlier in terms of the external investment, right? The investor side of the equation. And I think we'll come back and touch on that here just briefly. But I want to make sure I touch on kind of pivot over to Lieutenant Colonel Goldberg here and understand his perspective on the program, right? How did you two meet, right? What facilitating processes were there, and how has the relationship kind of blossomed since that time?
Yeah, hey, Jared. A pleasure to be with you guys today. Background, so Chief Innovation Officer for the Texas National Guard, right, the largest National Guard in the country. We have over 24,000 people, about 60, 70 armories, 3 bases. We have F-16, C-130s, MQ-9s, and we have a lot of the challenges that everyone else has. Not only do we also, the Guard as a whole comprises about 1/3 of the entire Air Force and 1/3 of the entire Army. We have that mission to go abroad, but we also uniquely have that mission to help serve in our community and our state in times of disaster. And we're on the front lines of COVID and hurricanes and all the other stuff that is currently going on right now. So we also have challenges as well. And one of the aspects of this program allows us to be able to utilize our people, our facilities, our equipment to really tap into the innovation within our communities across the 54 states and territories. And so whether it's our F-16s that are going, hey, we have parts of our aircraft that are no longer produced, and what are new, unique, novel ways in additive manufacturing to be able to produce that, all the way to training capabilities, which brought us to Ron Maynard, right, and the passenger company that was very much in stealth mode. We're continually looking for new and novel ways to enhance our training capability. As you're familiar with Pilot Training Next, which was that program that basically took a pilot and cut down the time to, from a year to 6 months, that was actually stood up at the Texas Army National Guard base here at Oshun-Bergstrom here in Texas. And so from there, those graduates that went to fighters went to our 149th Fighter Wing, which is a schoolhouse for F-16s at Kelly Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio. One of the things that we're looking at from where that was just the first instantiation of leveraging augmented reality and virtual reality to develop training aids. Within the Texas Guard, we also have Special Forces. We also have JTACs. And we also have many other training capabilities where our C-130s don't even have a training simulator at their facility. They actually have to fly all the way to Atlanta to be able to get remedial training, simulator time. So how do we find this unique and novel way to reduce our training time? We're just in the Texas Guard, between our Air and Army, we spend over $100 million in training every year. And with COVID and everything that is going on, what ways can we impact that space to save time, become more effective and efficient, where 75% of our folks are part-time? Normally, VR, AR headsets cost about, a few $1,000s. And they're really big and they're bulky. The resolution is very limited. The field of regard is very limited. The depth of field, the focus, because there are certain focal lengths, you get VR sickness and those kind of things. And that's because of those entities. So when we came across Passenger, they had this great technology and a great thesis that really just changed the game of how we go about it. That the form factor, the cost, it now got to a point where the resolution, the capabilities, the cost got us to a place where this made sense to scale. But these technologies, right, they don't walk down the halls of the Pentagon, or they don't walk down the halls of the Readiness Center, and they don't come here to our Jordan Force headquarters. So how do we find them? And I think leveraging from the AFWERX perspective and showcasing what our requirements are and being able to then help find those technologies and pair us has been pretty impactful. For us, we've leveraged, the program, extensively. We have over 30 companies that have won SBIRs or STTR phase 2s to a tune of over $150 million. And all those programs are at our wings. And from 3D printing buildings to 3D printing parts to predictive maintenance to looking at the cutting edge of augmented reality, companies like this, right, help solve our needs. So that's in part one. But like I said, we didn't find them, right? Most people don't know how to get on a base. Even if they got on a base, they don't know who to talk to. And this was a way for them to be able to help interact with us so we can give them warfighter feedback, understand how we would actually use these, and from cybersecurity to the actual form factor to the environment that we're going to be in, what do they need to actually do? What is that goalpost for them to actually meet for us to be able to help scale? And look, when I call AFWERX, when I call the Pentagon, right, they pick up. When a company calls, they just don't know who to talk to, and it's just a needle in a haystack. So acting as that Sherpa, right, a part of really that Spark entity, one of the 3 divisions that Jason talked about, that's where we fit in. And it's about scaling this across the entire country and leveraging all of the Air Force, all the total force, the active duty, the reserve, and the Guard. And we've been excited to be able to participate. So yeah, connecting as a service chief fellow from DARPA, being able to, I had Ron actually fly out to DARPA and introduce them to the MTO and the DSO divisions at DARPA. Connect them to those at the Air Force Research Lab so that he can understand the technical requirements and the environments that he's going to need to be able to customize his solution to create. And there's a lot of great use cases. The MEMS technology, think of when I'm flying my F-16 and I have night vision goggles and the tubes are, like 4 or 5, inches long, so to speak. How do I look at that next generation of night vision goggles? And his technology not only can help with the augmented reality and in the training and the real world environment, but you can actually now make night vision goggles that doesn't use that tube. It actually is just a flat panel. And so very excited with Ron, his background, and that interaction between academia, connecting them and providing them the capabilities that they need with clean rooms and simulator, insight to help us get where we need to get to. So yeah, happy to take the discussion in any way, but that's what got us interested and a huge fan of the program.
Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate that, Stoichi. One question, and this will go to both, but we'll start with Stoichi here. What makes a good partner, right? From Stoichi, your perspective, when you're looking at a commercial entity, right? What can they do, right? When they're kind of looking into the black hole that is the DoD, right? And all of the people in uniform and the acronym soup and really just the other universe that people are existing within. What can they do to be a good partner and to communicate their value to an Air Force or military person?
Absolutely. One is being able to be a part of that phase 1 SBIR or STTR really enables us to be able to take them behind the scenes, get them access to our people, facilities, and equipment while on an Air Force contract. And there's obviously some special powers by being on an SBIR and STTR, right? One, you get to be sole source. So we can go from a phase 1, 50 grand, all the way to a multi-million-dollar award. The second piece is they get to keep their intellectual property. And third, just because of the ability to not play favorites and to follow the federal acquisition regulations, that at the end of the day, fair competition, we can now, while on contract, be able to really give them the keys to the kingdom and behind the scenes. What we look for is very much of what the SBIR STTR is very focused on. So one is the DoD doesn't like to be the first customer, but we like to be the second customer. So there's an aspect here of understanding that the company, when people talk about the commercialization, what we're looking at is the company even going to be around at the end of the SBIR, STTR, or whatever award? If in a year and a half from now or 2 years, once the award is done, the company goes out of business, well, then you can't even commercialize the thing that we're paying them to develop. So one is just the strength of the company. And that's tough because a lot of these companies are really great. They just started out, but they don't have their footing to understand to provide the stability. And we've had many companies that by the end of the SBIR, STTR, they no longer exist. And so that is one of those challenges. Technically also is to really understand those value propositions and help us understand compared to the rest of the market. It's not just what you are doing, but how is it done now? And really help us understand this is 15 times faster, 5 times cheaper, as Ron was talking about. Look, what normally costs $1,000 to create, we can do that within $10 of parts or $50 of parts or $100 worth of parts. And that factor of the field of regard, help me understand the value propositions that you bring to bear. The DoD, we're the largest organization right in the country. There is someone from human resources to public affairs to maintenance and everything in between. We in the DoD are always not resting on our laurels, and we have those applications within the DoD to include right here in the Texas government, as well as the rest of the 54 states and territories. So help us understand that your company is going to be in existence longer than just 12 months or 18 months. Let me understand your commercial roadmap and where you'd like to go. The second piece is understanding that technology and why is this unique and novel. Part of this program is this is all 3,600 research and development dollars. And so help us understand it's not just this thing and we're just going to give it to a warfighter and that's the new novelty. Help us understand from their perspective, what is their commercial play and the value that they are bringing to that sector. We will then help figure out, is the juice worth the squeeze on the government side? And that's normally the easy part. But help me understand the first two, that you have a long roadmap and that you have a very solid understanding of your value proposition, your business model that you're bringing out in the commercial sector, and then we will help you on the government side. But if the first two legs of the stool are not there, that makes it relatively challenging to set them up for success.
Yeah, those really great response, and I think it hits on a lot of kind of perspective from the DoD side that folks in the commercial sector maybe just don't have simply, right? And I think I'm going to go over to Ron now, right? What makes a good DoD partner, right? What has Stoichi done in terms of developing relationships and kind of expanding your stakeholder base? What makes him a good partner for companies like you? Over.
Well, Stoichi is definitely our Sherpa taking us to places that we probably would never have gone or even thought of, actually. He is just doggedly following the leads and so forth. But on another level, what we really need, what high-tech companies like us really need, is the actual problems that are involved. And obviously, DoD doesn't share that with the general public. So it is a fantastic opportunity to come in at this level, see what needs to be done, see if we have some synergy there, if there's enough room to innovate. And in our case, yep, it was a happy coincidence that you guys needed what we had. We need what you have as well, and really enjoy the partnership here. And we definitely look forward to providing an amazing piece of equipment for you guys.
And Jared, just to reattack from Ron there, when we first were helping them through, I didn't really understand where they were as a company as far as that stability, those first couple legs. And they applied for an SBIR, and we did a direct to phase 2. And often is the case, right? There are a lot of people go right to the direct to phase 2. And one of the aspects of the company is they're relatively new and novel. And so they hard to raise capital and hard to really start building that momentum. And like I said, in the value proposition for the SBIR, you really got to show that long-term stability. With the STTR program, that's not always the case. Because if a company goes out of business from an STTR, there's a value proposition that money is going into industry, into nonprofit, into academia. So because at least 30% has to go to academia, that even if the company goes out of base, there are other incentives, there are others metrics that matter to AFWERX and matter to the larger program that I didn't become aware of until, probably about 6-9 months ago. And that really helped me open up a new path for Ron to go, look, what they need is really the STTR program, because that stool of that commercialization wasn't really there, but it's not as big of an emphasis on the STTR, and help connect them with Texas A&M and other entities that had what they needed. Where look at that 30% needed to go to academia. Well, let's find a partner that has a clean room or has the particular expertise that they need as a company to help develop. And they were successful. And so many of the companies that apply to have SBIR that have not been successful, that have gone through the STTR route, at second blush, right, were successful and have won the phase 1s and have won the phase 2s. And I don't think most people understand that. Maybe you can articulate, some of the differences between the SBIR and STTR. But I thought that was very impactful. And because of their phase 2 STTR win, which does make them eligible for the Strat5 program to really then help scale them, which is fantastic. I think that just opened up a new market, which then helped build their momentum. Once they won the phase 1 STTR, and now the phase 2 STTR, and now they just got another round of funding, and now their roadmap, extends out several years. And now we're positioning them for a Strat5 and getting DARPA and AFRL and some of these other customers on board and exposing them to DevCom or Army Soldier Center from AFC. The great thing about the AFWERX program is it's not just Air Force entities. Like I've connected them with NASA or DARPA or other entities and other services that can bring in that non-dilutive capital that can really then help them, for the Air Force's perspective, cross that chasm that Jason was talking about and bring them all the way to a program of record. When you're talking $15 million and matching that with $15 million, that's $30 million of non-dilutive equity. And then, it makes it relatively easier for companies to raise that capital when they're basically doubling their money. And they have a customer at the end of the rainbow or multiple customers. So I think those kinds of things, the STTR specifically, underutilized resource, didn't know much about it, learn more, was able to help provide that guidance to some of these companies. And in turn, they have been successful and run as one of those cases.
Yeah, those are really wonderful points all around. I mean, you touched on a couple of really important things. One is the importance of phase 1, right? There are certainly folks out there, who are ready for a direct to phase 2. They're ready to punch in. They've got folks who are bought in, and they're ready to go, right? Those folks exist, right? Phase 1, right, is only 3 months though. It's not very long, but it provides a really, really invaluable runway and on ramp, really, into the phase 2 effort, right? That prototyping type of effort, and it gives folks a chance to really kind of explore the space a little bit, right? Inside of the DoD.
What's the success rate of a direct to phase 2 ballpark?
Yeah, so I mean, you're certainly going to be a bit lower just in terms of statistics from the phase ones, right?
Yeah, and that was the thing, from what I learned, talking to other folks, Jason and whatnot, that it's about less than 10% for a direct to phase two. But if you do a phase one and you win, and then you apply to from a phase one to a phase two, then it's up to 35 or 40%. And right, that's dramatically different. And on the STTR path, phase one and phase two, the chances are even that much higher. And so if you're looking at playing the odds, and maybe Jason can talk to this, of just the different paths and the success rates, where, with Passenger, they were applying to these direct to phase twos and not successful. And then we go to this other path that has been successful. Jason?
No, Stoicky, I think you hit the nail on the head. Not to jump into this panel too much, but you're right. I mean, there's a portfolio of options available. The direct to phase two is the most competitive. We've seen that last round was close to 16% successful. And there are many efforts that we would have liked to have funded that would have been extremely successful. Our budget is capped by the Congress. So we can fund however much we have funds, how we have available. This next round is going to be even more selective, and the number of applicants continues to rise. Now the program, if you can get through the direct to phase two program, that program is extremely successful in transitioning. And so we found the success rates for transition have been very high, but it is highly selective just because the amount of companies who see it as probably the fastest way to a sizable award. But that's not right for everyone. Some companies and some technologies need more time. They need more time to develop, to go through phase one, to go through the STTR program, which across the federal government has not had a great track record with transitioning technologies. I know Jared's already done an incredible job at increasing the rate of transition for that program in terms of driving in matched investment. But certainly something we want to continue to offer is that, hey, if you've got something that's really hard tech, it's going to take 10 years to mature to get it to, a 2029, launch. That we're the Air Force. We want to be partners in that effort, and we just have different partnership models for that approach. So there's a wide range of options out there. They're built to be structured to cater to a wide range of markets on the Air Force side and supply on the commercial side. So spot on, good point.
Absolutely. And sometimes you look at these technologies in the TRL stage, are we talking bar napkin, right? There's a company that wants to build a Mach 15 aircraft that can carry 15 passengers from New York to China in a year and a half. That's going to take a few years to develop. It's not ready for an SBIR. So it's like they want to apply for direct to phase two. The chances of success are very little. Just understanding where you are in your technology development, as you said, there are different pathways. The STTR, especially if you're early on and you're in more of that basic fundamental applied research, really being able to go phase left into that STTR, pot, one is just more successful and will set them up for success. Well, then that will open up the opportunity for SBIR, but even from the STTR phase two, you can then do the Strat5, which I think, the fact that you guys are opening up that is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it all highlights, right, our role as a government in this process and our ability to focus on long-term strategic type of technologies, right, and bring non-dilutive funding and other investment, investment to bring this to bear over time, right? And I think it's a really great blend of the program. And I know we're running short on time, but one thing I did want to touch on here towards the end with Ron. Was there anything about the process that kind of shocked you, right? Was there anything? What did you not expect when you first were introduced to Stoicky, right? When you first started engaging with the DoD space, what was your perspective shift, if any, right, when at the very beginning there? I think we may have we may have lost Ron there, but I guess we are towards the end of our time. but I do want to highlight a few things for the next cycle of SBIR and STTRs. Will be coming out here very soon. The pre-solicitation opens next week on the 24th, which means they will become public, right? The solicitation documents themselves will be available for public viewing beginning on the 24th. The proposal window will open on the 6th of January, and we'll go through the end of the month and into the beginning of February there. If you're interested, please keep an eye out on the AFWERX website, particularly the events page. Will publish dates for our Ask Me Anything sessions, where folks can jump in, ask questions, learn about the program specifically, about this cycle, and participate. So thanks so much for your time.